Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Retire Well, the show dedicated to helping you retire well in all aspects of your life. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio are two members from Citizen Advisory Group. We have the owner and financial advisor, Kevin Bucher, and Pete Samenuk, who is also a financial advisor. We've got a great show for you this week. We're going to be talking about refinancing your retirement. Do you wonder what that even might mean? What could that possibly mean for you? You're going to want to stay with us to find out. Kevin, Pete, great to be back with both of you this week. How are you?
Good, doing well. Excellent.
Awesome. Well, I know that you have put together a lot of thought into this show. This is going to be really fascinating, talking about refinancing our finances, specifically refinancing your retirement. You know, typically when folks think about the term refinance, they think about doing that when interest rates are lower. Maybe you think about refinancing your home or refinancing your car. Well, in recent years, we've now been in a higher interest rate environment, but that actually poses a unique opportunity for folks to refi their retirement. So my first question for you today is, what are we even talking about here when we use this term refinance your retirement?
Yeah. So I think you explained it pretty well, actually. But the big thing here to remember, most people are familiar with the concept of refinancing their debt, right? I'll meet with people all the time, and it's like, I'm like looking at their mortgage and it's like 15 years left and they're still paying like 6%. And we're just thinking like, why didn't you refinance your mortgage or refinance your debt? So when interest rates are low, and we've been in a low interest rate environment for the last 10 years, really.
Up until
2022, right? When we started increasing them. And, you know, when interest rates are low, everyone understands that your debt needs to be refinanced. If we're paying a mortgage rate of 5%, we could have refinanced that at 2.5%, 3.5%. Okay, the opposite is true though for retirement and retirement planning, is that when we have high interest rates, we actually need to take a look at our portfolios and our investments and our things that are in there, and we can actually refinance those too on the better side, right? We can refinance those for higher rates, lock in some higher rates, and take advantage of kind of where interest rates are today.
So let's talk about that, because yes, interest rates have been higher recently. So I would love for you, Kevin, to share with our viewers a little bit more about what that actually looks like, what that means, and what are some of the opportunities that are currently available.
Yeah, so I think, you know, just on a basic level, when you invest money, one of the goals of investing money is to make money on your money, right? So when we look back over the past decade, interest rates have been held so low for so long that there really wasn't a whole lot of return to be had in fixed interest earning accounts like CDs or fixed rate annuities or US Treasuries. There just wasn't a whole lot of return to get in those fixed interest earning accounts. So that kind of led people to taking on more equity exposure, more risk in the equity markets. But so that also largely is what drove the stock values higher, is because there was so much money flowing into the equity markets because of what we call TINA. There was no alternative at that time to the equity markets because there was no money to be made in the fixed interest earning solutions. So why this is so important today is to relook at that, is we're seeing people that their equity exposure has been overinflated over the years at a time where market values have again hit all-time highs several times here in 2024. So it's a great time to look at reducing some of the risk and volatility in your portfolio. And we can do that today by taking some of that risk and putting it into interest-bearing accounts that are paying an attractive return. So it's really important to do that today. An example, just recently met with some clients, Bruce and Laura, and that was their main point of where they were at, is that their equity exposure, their market risk has greatly increased over the years because of how strong their market side has performed. So they were looking to reduce some of the risk of that and put it into more fixed interest earning accounts, but do that at better rates today that are available and still have the earning potential that we get inside of those fixed interest earning accounts. So we don't have to accept the 1.5% or lower returns in our fixed interest vehicles anymore. So it's a great time to do that because of those two reasons. Markets are at all-time highs, so it's a good time to take some of that risk off the table, and interest rates are attractive.
So it really does speak to the fact that this is a time-sensitive conversation, right? I mean, we don't know what the Fed may or may not do, but why would you say someone really needs to start considering this process right now?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing about refinancing your retirement is not only getting a better rate of return on your fixed interest things. It's not a matter of, this is part of it. You had a CD paying 1% or 2%. Yeah, we can refinance that and get probably 4 or 5, maybe even higher on that. But the big thing right now, and where it is time sensitive, is the stock markets. We're back through all-time highs. We had some shake in 2022. 2023 was a comeback. We had a little bit of a downturn. And then we're right back through all-time highs. And that's coupled with high interest rates. So I would say I've never seen a time in the last 15, 20 years where there's been a better opportunity to really what we would call refinance your retirement, where we have to take advantage of all the money that we've made in the last 10 years in our risk accounts in the stock market and shift that over to some of the safe things that we can really take advantage of, locking in some of those interest rates, guaranteeing some income. That's the concept of refinancing your retirement.
And that's a really important part of refinancing your retirement. As it's not just about the investment return.
Right.
We also have the potential in today's marketplace to use higher guaranteed income products, because these higher rates also mean higher income streams. So a huge part of retirement planning is the income side of things. Over time, we've been very well brainwashed by the mainstream marketplace and Wall Street that retirement planning was all about building this big nest egg up and having a bunch of assets. But in reality, retirees live off of their income. And we're at a point now where by refinancing some of their retirement accounts, we can get higher income and lock in higher income from them, which really just means better.
Right.
And I know we're going to get to that later on in the show, but better income, better investment performance, lower risk volatility. So now is the perfect time to take a look at doing these things.
Well, you've raised so many good points already, and we're just getting into the show. And if someone's watching and going, you know what, I hadn't thought about these things, or maybe they're wondering, gosh, I don't know, maybe I need to make some changes to my situation. Maybe it's important for me to start this process of refinancing my own retirement. What would you say to that individual?
Yeah, so for callers from today's show, we're offering a complimentary written financial plan. And too often we meet with individuals who are either near retirement or already in retirement, and they don't actually have a financial plan. And when we kind of challenge individuals about having a plan, oftentimes what they think is a plan is just having some accounts. And without pulling those accounts together into a comprehensive financial plan, it's really just the hope strategy. You're just hoping that everything works out.
Right.
So this written financial plan is going to encompass the 5 areas of financial planning. It really does start with a retirement income strategy. Once we've developed that retirement income strategy, we can then move into the investments, because we know what we need the investments to do. We then put a tax overlay on top of that and start doing some tax mitigation strategies to reduce the tax liability. We're going to look at your insurance and make sure you're in the proper insurance plans, and then also make sure you have your legacy and estate set up in the most efficient way possible.
Talk about a comprehensive, holistic financial plan. It doesn't get any better than that, right?
There's so many pieces to it, and it all has to coordinate together.
For sure. Well, Kevin, Pete, thank you. I'm excited to continue this important conversation with you today. To our viewers at home, to claim your complimentary written financial plan, all you need to do is call that number that you see there on the bottom of your screen, 866-630-1675. Or if you'd rather not talk to someone right now, but you do have your smartphone handy, don't worry, we've got you covered. You can simply pull it out. If you open up that camera app, point, click, and scan that QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Citizen Advisory Group will reach out to you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. When we come back, we're going to discuss some of the positive impacts of this increasing interest rate environment that we've been in, and why not making changes currently could potentially cause problems. Stay with us.
I have a bachelor's degree in education. I spent the first part of my working years teaching. I left the teaching world and went into a family business endeavor that eventually led me down to the financial services world. And there really is a lot of overlap between the two, taking comprehensive topics and breaking that into common sense, easy to understand framework, whether that was in the classroom or now in a meeting room with clients. There was a transition, but some of the skills from the education world transferred very well over into the financial world. By and large, people are very confused about the financial planning process. And oftentimes they kind of settle for the default outcome of that, of not really having control. One of my favorite parts of the process is putting the solutions together and then presenting that back to the client and seeing maybe some light bulbs going off to understanding things that maybe there wasn't a great understanding of before. Setting goals, working towards those goals, and helping them along this journey to having a more successful financial outcome. I do have an oversight role as well, where I'm overseeing other advisors. We work very well together in a collaboration where we bring different areas of knowledge and expertise to the table to really provide more comprehensive solutions for our clients.
Welcome back to Retire Well. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Kevin and Pete from Citizen Advisory Group. We are talking today all about refinancing your retirement. But before we dive back into that conversation, I want to just go back to this complimentary written financial plan that you're offering to viewers today, because it is very robust, but I know there's some other points you want to share about it.
Yeah, so when we kind of talk through it, there is so many pieces to it. So, I can quickly explain the 5 general areas of financial planning and what's included in a written financial plan. But the reality is it's going to be very specific to the individual circumstances that you have. But there's so much to it. And what I just want to make sure of is that sometimes that can feel overwhelming because there's so much to it. And then sometimes when we're overwhelmed, what happens is inaction.
Right.
But the reality is there is a lot to financial planning. But I think we have recognized as a firm that, yes, we need to have a comprehensive look at this, but we also know that we don't have to tackle all of these things at one time. So we can go through these 5 areas of the financial planning process. We can identify the key areas that we need to start with and focus in on. And it takes time to really build out the comprehensive. So it might sound very overwhelming, but it's a very systematic approach on how we walk through and build out the final product.
Well, and this is what you are experts in doing. You do this day in and day out. And I always like to tell folks, you just get to be an expert in you. And then with your guidance, right, you get to ask the questions, gain the information that you need to put together that very customized, personalized retirement plan.
Yeah, and what I would add to that, I think the most valuable thing that any financial advisor can do is provide a common sense framework for you to make your own individual decisions within that framework. But it has to be a common sense approach so that you are the one in charge making those decisions.
Right, absolutely. Such a beautiful thing. Well, going back to refinancing your retirement in this discussion, it's interesting because we have been in a higher interest rate environment recently, and what a lot of folks don't realize is by not making changes to their financial plan, that could potentially cause some problems down the road. But we always want to give a very balanced discussion on this show, and obviously there's some negatives about being in a higher interest rate environment as well. So let's start with the negatives and then we'll end with the positives. But what are some of those negatives of where we are currently in our economic climate?
Yeah, so I'll guess I'll be the negative guy. I'll be the poo-pooer, and we'll let Pete handle the positive side of things, right?
Perfect.
So, when we're in an increasing rate environment that we really saw throughout 2022, it really wreaks havoc on both the equity markets and the bond markets.
Yes.
So it puts pressure on both, and that's why we saw significant drops in both bond market and equity market values. And that was a really rough year for investors, especially balanced, diversified investors that felt like they had some protection.
And you're specifically talking about 2022 and
2022, yes, because that was when we saw this significant jumps up in the interest rate, and that did continue a little bit into 23, and then they've kind of stabilized here. But when we're in an increasing rate environment, there's an inverse relationship between bond interest value and their market value of the account. So as interest rates go up, the bond value actually goes down. So think about it from this perspective. If I'm holding a bond that pays me 2% interest, and the interest rate environment changes, and I can also now buy a bond that's paying 4% interest, my bond paying 2% just became less valuable because who's going to buy my 2% bond when you can buy it for 4%?
Yeah.
So that's got a direct relationship. I think that's pretty easy to follow. But it also plays on the equity markets because now there's alternatives to the investment dollar, and there's more money going into the fixed income than going into the equity markets. That's part one. It's also more expensive for corporations to invest into growth. because they're basically paying higher interest rates to access capital. So that had a negative impact on the equity market. So when we're in increasing rate environment, it does wreak havoc on the markets. The expectation today is that rates are going to somewhat stabilize and then start to go backwards. So that that's going to have its own set of challenges.
Right.
But there are certain positives with the rate environment that we're in today as well.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk more about those positives, Pete. And I'm curious to hear, you've touched on some of those things earlier, but if you're just joining us, the benefit of folks utilizing this higher interest rate environment to refinance their finances.
Yeah, and people always give me like a weird look when I say, we're in a high interest rate environment and we need to take advantage of that. And people are saying, well, why is that good for me? Why is that good to be in a high interest rate environment? Because we've all been trained that high interest rates are bad, right? They're bad for us because our mortgages go up. And well, I'll tell you who it's bad for, people in their 20s, 30s, people trying to kind of start to get their feet on the ground, just entering the workforce. Yeah, they might have to pay higher interest rates on their debts and their mortgages, right?
Yep.
So that's got its own challenges in its own right. But really for retirees and people that are looking for safe investments and things that have a beyond reasonable rate of return, right? If we need 4 or 5%, we can guarantee that risk-free right now. And not to mention some of the things that are going to guarantee us our income in retirement too. So going back to what refinancing your retirement means to us is not just squeezing out more interest from the things that you have generating safe return, like your CDs and your fixed annuities and maybe your money markets, but it means taking some of the risk off of the table. Some of the risk that we have with our portfolio and things and shifting some of that money. And those are the positives. We can really, I can't tell you how many meetings and reviews we've had lately, Kevin, where we're looking at existing clients and we're taking money out of the market. We're saying, look, we have to capitalize on the last 5, 10 years and all the good gains that we've had and shift that to the other side. And what that does, it's actually been increasing people's budgets. I won't forget, I had a meeting just this past week where I was going through someone's budget and she was asking, how much can I actually spend in addition to what I'm already getting? And after we kind of redrew some things up, and just by shifting some things out of the market over to things that had some safe return, I was able to increase her budget by it was like 30%.
Wow.
I know that sounds like a crazy number, but she could spend almost 30% more money from her portfolio just because of some of the guaranteed income streams and the high interest rates that we can get in some of those safe income products.
And that's just amazing how it's just sometimes some slight tweaks, some slight adjustments, but this is the value of working with someone who understands the environment that we're in and knows what's available.
Yeah, I mean, I've had many conversations over the past several months where I get to start the conversation by saying, hey, we have some exciting news and exciting opportunity to share with you today. So we're big believers at Citizen Advisory Group in having the proper balance in your investment approach to where you do have money that's protected and providing some guaranteed income to you. At the same time, you have some money that's invested in the market for the long-term growth potential that provides. But so to Pete's point, we have conversations on a regular basis now with clients where we're able to increase their bottom line from an income standpoint. So Ron and Barb, people I just met with last week as an example, without taking one extra ounce of risk, we were able to restructure the safe side of their plan and increase their income by about 16%.
Wow.
So it's an exciting opportunity. We don't always get the chance to have those conversations. So it is something that we want to encourage people to look at. So the reality is this opportunity is not going to be there for the rest of our lives. So we have to take advantage of these opportunities when they do come up.
Absolutely. Well, no doubt more folks are going to be wanting to get connected with you all as a result of this conversation today. That's really exciting.
It is. And it makes such a big difference, not just for this one individual year. We're talking about lifetime adjustments that have a lifetime worth of additional benefits.
Because if you're able to lock these gains in while interest rates are higher, then you're locked in, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're taking advantage of that high stock market that we're in right now. And we don't know how long that's going to last.
Right.
Might markets be up 20% in 12 months? I'll tell you in 12 months, right?
Nobody knows. No one has a crystal ball, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But we know the market only does one of two things. It goes up and it goes down.
Yeah, and there's a lot of evidence suggesting right now that we're in for some rocky times. But we don't know the answer to that either. We're just trying to be play a little defense.
We can only go with what we know, and what we know right now is this is an excellent time to really execute some of these refinance strategies.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
Pete, Kevin, thank you so much. Again, if you're already working with another financial advisor, but they are not having these kinds of conversations with you, it's time to get a second opinion. And the team of Citizen Advisory Group would love to meet with you. Again, this is completely complimentary to you. You're going to be able to come in and sit down and talk about your individual situation and see if maybe some of these strategies we're talking about today could be a good fit for you. That number to call to claim your complimentary written financial plan is 866-630-1675, or again, you're also welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. More on this conversation of refinancing your retirement right after this.
Whether it's time with your grandkids, travel, or finally doing what you've always wanted, retirement is about having the time to live life on your schedule. At Citizen Advisory Group, we build comprehensive retirement plans customized to your individual goals. Whether you're still preparing, taking your first steps, or have been on the path for years, our trusted and caring professionals are here to help you manage the risks and navigate the challenges on the road to your financial future. Citizen Advisory Group, your retirement journey begins here.
We know the market is going to get worse from here. This is the biggest monthly decline in 10 years. People's 401ks took a major hit.
Well, my investments are tanking. My retirement isn't going as planned. I can't believe I let my kid talk me into buying crypto. I mean, what is that anyway?
This was the fourth worst contraction in history.
So how are you two doing?
Your financial future doesn't have to be uncertain. I'm Kevin Bucher of Citizen Advisory Group. If you have amassed a nest egg, it's time for a financial advisor to help you reach your retirement goals. This is one of the greatest tax windows in history. Now is the time to take advantage of this tax discount while you can. We specialize in retirement planning, tax mitigation, legacy planning, and so much more. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your own complimentary portfolio review and written financial plan.
Welcome back to Retire Well, where today we've been discussing refinancing your retirement, what that means, what that could potentially mean for you, and really at the end of the day, what this conversation is about is how potentially your financial future could be made even better. And Kevin and Pete, at the end of the day, that's what this is about, because better is just better,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And it's really about, our focus on money and retirement and financial planning is creating a better life, right? The point of money is not to have money, right? We don't have money just to have money. The point of the money is to create a better life for you and your family. And that's what we have the money for. So we have to be good stewards of it. And just going back to refinancing your retirement, and Kristen, one of the things you kind of hit on at the end of last segment that I wanted to double down on was the fact that, if you haven't been having these conversations with your advisor, and we're in this increasing interest rate environment, and you haven't talked to your advisor in the past 2 years, 3 years, 4 or 5 years, we find that bizarre. These are conversations that need to continually be happening. You should be having a meeting, a conversation with your advisor at a minimum every 12 months, if not a little bit more. But you really, right now in this environment, if you haven't been having these discussions with your advisor or your planner, we find that quite odd. We find that bizarre in today's world.
Well, because so much has changed even in just the last 2 years alone, right?
Well, and to the whole point of this whole episode today, there's an opportunity that exists today.
And it's time sensitive.
It is very time sensitive. So if your advisor is not talking to you about these two things, it can really only mean one of two things. It either means he doesn't know about these opportunities, or he doesn't want you to know about these opportunities. And I'm not sure which one of those two things is worse, but there's opportunities that we need to encourage people to take action on today before it is too late, because these can have a lifetime worth of benefits attached to them.
Well, I think part of the issue is for a lot of the majority of the industry, if people are working with corporate big name firms, they don't necessarily want people moving money out of the stock market, right? Wall Street doesn't want money going out because they get paid on less. We've talked about that on previous shows.
And I think that's 100% what I meant by they don't want you to know. So why wouldn't they want you to know?
Right.
Well, because it might not be in their best interest for you to know. And the reality is, as a fiduciary, firm that follows the fiduciary standard of care, we have to act in our client's best interest. And I think we learned a long time ago that when we do what's in our client's best interest, that ultimately ends up being very good for us as well.
Absolutely, it's a win-win. Yeah.
So it's just the way the universe
and it's
works.
the right thing to do.
Well, and it's just, it is a mantra at our firm is that we go back to is you help people get what they want, and ultimately you will get what you want. You know, we certainly, you know, we don't sugarcoat fees or what people are paying. We don't work for free,
Right.
But we help people get what they want, and ultimately that helps us get what we want, and that's a win-win situation. That's kind of the family fiduciary environment that we've truly created, and that's kudos
Right.
to Kevin and his brother Jeff for everything they've built.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you always pride yourselves too on being able to show someone all of the options and empowering them to make the best decision, because you work for the client and it's up to them to decide what they want to do, but your job is to present what's in their best interest, the different options, then they get to decide. You know, I'm curious, we talked about the value of a second opinion. What happens if someone comes in and everything is on track and everything is in good shape? How does the conversation go then? Maybe you look at it and you're saying, you know what, maybe a refi doesn't work. I mean, does that happen ever?
That's a great point.
It does happen. You know, there's times where someone will actually come in with a financial plan, which is rare, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so that conversation is a fairly easy one because you know, I congratulate people for doing the work. We can certainly offer some opinion on some areas, but if someone's got a good plan in place and they've covered the 5 components of financial planning, then we don't need to try to convince somebody to do something that's not in their best interest.
Right.
Because there's an awful lot of people out there, and maybe this is you too, that doesn't have a financial plan that's bringing all of these things together. So we're going to help those individuals that need our help. And there's a lot of people out there that need our help.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that more often than not, you do find areas that could potentially be improved and are able to offer recommendations to that end, right?
Yeah, and one of the main points I want to take back to is if it's not in your best interest, we're not going to do it. So I'll go back to if you have an old product, you know, that has a good interest rate and we can't beat it, or going back to like pension planning, you know, if we can't beat your pension and the guaranteed payout that it provides from the actual retirement plan, we're not going to recommend replacing it because we do have to do what's in your best interest.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, Pete, thank you so much. What a valuable and informative conversation today. I know a lot of our viewers are going to be really blessed by hearing this information, and I'm excited for more folks to connect with you. So again, that number to call to get your complimentary written financial plan is 866-630-1675, or you're also welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. The time is now. Don't wait. You want to take advantage of where we are in today's economic climate to help make your financial situation even better. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with you next time here on Retire Well.